kind of out of control. I was reading that in New York, a third of all the shoplifting cases are by 327 people in a city of 8 million. Because they keep getting returned to the streets. Like most of the shootings are young black men killing other young black men. Is that not correct? Why doesn't anybody talk about that? Why aren't there, 100 giant black celebrities who would have the respect of those people saying, what are you doing to yourselves?
Nearly a third of all shoplifting arrests in the city last year involved just 327 people. Businesses say they have little defense. So it's a very successful crime syndicate. And how much you want to bet, Eric, that this is a situation like Batman here, where the people who steal all this stuff, somebody who has the ability to prosecute them is getting a cut of this stuff. New York City storefront businesses already weathering inflation and an uneven recovery from the coronavirus pandemic,
foisted on them by the overbearing government.
Are
right?
also
they want to blame it on the virus, but it was the politicians.
Oh,
obviously.
in New York specifically too, are also contending with what the police say is dramatic increase in shoplifting. But stats also reveal a starting reality: a relative handful of shoplifters are responsible for an outsized percentage of retail crime. I'm not sure I agree with that rating. An outsized percentage. If any budding writers out there, if you are writing a story and you write a sentence like for an outsized percentage, and you think maybe people might not understand what I mean by that, just choose a different word. I know you're the New York Times and you think you're super special, but just choose a different word. Don't.
Yeah, I mean,
don't use.
It's going to be AI. It's going to be AI.
I'm being replaced sexually as well. Nearly a third of all we'll cut that out. Nearly a third of all shoplifting arrests in New York City last year involved just 327 people. Collectively, they were arrested and rearrested more than 6,000 times. What's our calculation on that, Eric? How good you went to a fancy school? What's that?
No. I don't know anything about math. I'm not going to do any math. But I will say,
that's 18.3 arrests per person.
So a bare minimum, if we're being conservative, a bare minimum of 18 times. And as I understand it, our good buddy Neely, AOC's new favorite subway rider, was arrested 40 times in a couple of years.
4 times
right?
the average.
I don't know the
guys.
I don't know the time span, right? It wasn't 1 month or it wasn't 2 months, so it was probably a little bit longer. But we're talking about 40 times. I think it was either 40 or 41 times that guy was arrested. And that's not to say I'm not defending what happened to him, right? I'm not saying, well, after you get arrested 40 times, you know someone's gonna take you out. But what I will
sad
say
that you have to like preface that, but continue.
No, exactly, it is, and that's where we've come. It's really sad, but it's very clear that he was, let's say, living life on the edge, right? Right. When you're putting yourself in and out of the system that many times, do you think everything else he did was on the level? You think he was, was he working on his resume every night trying to go get a new job so he didn't have to pretend to be Michael Jackson on the subway? Or is that just, you know what I mean? Like you're already living your life on the edge. Do we think he wasn't maybe using a substance, right? Like, I mean, look, and these things are not okay to say. Like you say, it's like you have to preface this and pretend, but it's like these are the facts, bro. When we have a story like this, and the average theft in New York, less than 400 of them are being arrested, an average of 18.2 times or whatever it is, 18.3 times, and this guy is getting arrested more than double that. Right? I mean, it's absolutely through the roof, and we're just supposed to pretend. And I'm looking at my Instagram, and I'm seeing Mother Jones and New York Magazine and the New York Times, and they are doing the exact same thing that they did with our good buddy, the patron saint of fentanyl, right? As they paint him, they put these pictures of him, these glowing pictures of him, in these drawings, these illustrations, these renderings of, how cool he was and how entertaining that he was. And so it's okay for them to point out that side of the story, but as soon as you point out the opposite side of the story, now you become the villain, right? So it's through the roof, and that is part of the reason why I have a very hard time believing that most of these people actually believe this, right? And again, I hate to constantly go back to it. But when I spoke to the original Summer of Love George Floyd protesters, they didn't say anything about Black Lives Matter. They didn't say anything about Trayvon Martin or any of these martyrs or Breonna Taylor or any of that stuff. They said, we're promoting overdose reversal medication. We're promoting Narcan, naloxone. That should be a red flag that they are clearly, because when you look into naloxone, obviously it's very heavily funded by the Open Society Foundation. Open societies, I always forget. Soros and crew, right? So
Well,
I
listen
know
to
that
this
sounds
part.
very conspiratorial,
Mhm.
but I think a lot of them, I mean, this is the war that we're in, bro.
Shout out viewer not intimidated. Make sure you subscribe, please. This part was a little startling, to use mainstream media terms. This is shocking. Some engage in shoplifting as a trade, while others were driven by addiction or mental illness. The police did not identify the 327 people in the analysis, so you know who the 327 criminals are, but you can't, and they've been convicted of crimes, but you can't release their names.
Turn it up, Jordan.